Alright guys, it's that time of the month again. 35 pokes, January 2025 tier list video. We are 10 days into the meta now. Enough time has passed, so it's time for us to do a tier list. This tier list could obviously change, you know, the meta game still has like 20 days left of it, so you might as well just be like, well, some of these things could change over time, but like so far, this is my thoughts on the meta game. At the current moment in time, and like, I think this is pretty accurate, to be honest. So yeah, we're going to be making a tier list video for that. But yeah, if you guys do enjoy this video, want to see some more competitive Pokemon content and whatnot, subscribe to the channel, join the kingdom. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We've passed 700 subscribers now. We've been getting a lot of subscribers thanks to the fake Mons analysis video, so I want to shout you guys out for that. The kingdom is growing on a daily basis. But either way, let's get into the nitty gritty of 35 pokes January. And to be fair, this is a pretty solid meta game in my opinion. There isn't really anything that I would personally ban at this point. Like, everything seems to be manageable. We have decent enough options in the meta game to run a variety of teams. So yeah, we're going to be ranking all 35 mons. You know, won't spend too much time discussing most of them, but I'm just going to place them where I think they need to be placed in. But either way, let's start off with Clodsire. And Clodsire is definitely an A+ Pokemon. Definitely one of the best defensive walls in the tier. It comes down to the fact that it has a high HP stat and the ability Unaware. Now, Unaware if we didn't have Unaware, I feel like a lot of the special sweepers will get out of hand, whether that's Growth, Vileplume and Sun, or Carmine, Comfey, or, you know, Quiver or Career. If Clodsire wasn't in the tier, a lot of these guys will kind of go crazy. Even on the physical side, being able to stop like SD, Dual Wing Beat Cypher, or even SD Infernape is something that's really good. So yeah, having a really solid ability to stop some of the most dangerous offensive threats is why Clodsire sees a lot of usage. It has access to Stealth Rocks, it has access to Spikes and Toxic Spikes, and yeah, it's just a very versatile defensive Pokemon that can either go Fizz Def, Special Defense, or even you know, Mixed Bulk because of its high HP stat. So it ends up, you know, being able to invest quite a bit in its defense. It has a pretty high HP, and then it can tank things like Infernape's Flare Blitz, Cypher's Dual Wing Beat, you know, just some of the strongest physical attackers in the tier. In addition to the fact that it also has reliable recovery, so its longevity on the field is always going to be there. And yeah, Clodsire is just you know, wall that does a lot of stuff for your team. So it's definitely a mon that deserves some respect in the A+ tier. Now moving on to Comfey, I'm gonna put Comfey in A just because of the fact that, you know, Clodsire is an A+, and like that really stops Comfey from going out of you know, that stops Comfey from going out of hand. And especially the fact that you also have like another Pokemon type Null, which we'll talk about you know, when we get there. But you know, Comfey just kind of gets stopped by a lot of the special walls in the metagame, which are actually somewhat common. But in terms of worrying about its setup sets, for example, Comfey leans into more of its utility move pool. It has Defog, it has U-Turn, it has Triarch Draining Kiss, so it can revenge kill something like Crawdont very effectively. And it also has Aromatherapy. Like, it just has a lot of really good supporting moves to help its teammates out. U-Turn to get in the breakers, Aromatherapy and Defog to make sure that its teammates are healthy at the same time. And like Fairy type, like we have quite a bit of Fairy types, or just two other Fairy types in the metagame, in Dashbun and Alcremie, and Comfey is definitely the best out of the three Fairy types for sure. Like, it's just pretty bulky, has the support move pool, and you know, can help check a lot of you know, Pokemon as well in the metagame. But yeah, overall Comfey is a good addition to the metagame. It's not A+ in my opinion, because it's not nearly as splashable as the ones that I'm gonna be putting in A+, but you know, it's not a bad Pokemon by any means. Now moving on to Probopass, this guy's going straight in C. This guy's mid. Probopass is not good. We have like, how many? We have fighting types, we have ground types, we have water types. Like, Probopass's typing does it no favors. It's a flawed steel type. I'm not even going to mention his rock typing because that also doesn't really help out either. But it's a pretty flawed steel type. Like, if I wanted a steel type, and I pray that any other steel type gets rolled other than Probopass, I'd prefer to have Klinklang or even something like a Berserker in this metagame rather than Probopass. It just comes down to the fact that his defensive typing is way too exploitable. Times 4 weakness to ground and fighting never really helps, and being weak to water in a Crawdont metagame also isn't particularly helpful either. So it really just comes down to it having probably one of the most poor typings in the metagame. One thing that Probopass can do, like, it realistically just comes down to like ID press sets with line defense plus body press. But even then, like, what's letting you set up an ID when pretty much every offensive mon can threaten you? Like, you're a steel type that doesn't resist grass either. So, like, you're not even a solid sun check. But at least you're a steel type that is neutral to fire. So, what can we say? What can we say? But yeah, Probopass, the best thing I've seen Probopass run, and I say best with the hugest grain of salt that I have in my hand, you know, gravity volt switch sets to enable Flapple, which has the ability hustle, and obviously gravity increases accuracy. So yeah, that's all Probopass has done this month, and you know, in 10 days, that's not good. No, not really. Like, I could just use Flapple on his own, or use any other Pokemon that does what Probopass does. But yeah, not a particularly good mon by any means. Now, moving on to something that's a lot better than Probopass in my opinion is Bellibolt. Now, I'm gonna put this guy in B+, just because, like, he's not the easiest mon to fit onto teams, for example, but at the same time, like, it is quite bulky. Like, you have to respect his bulk. If you go Fizz Def, you're checking a lot of really scary physical attackers like Infernape, Shiftry, Cypher, even. Like, you hard stop Cypher really well. Punish U-turn with your ability static. Also, obviously Crawdon does a lot of damage to everything in the metagame, like, let's not lie now, but like, Bellibolt has type advantage, has reliable recovery, and isn't like completely blown up by it, especially if you switch in on like a knockoff, for example. If you go like itemless Bellibolt, activate the static on Crawdon if you're lucky, and then you can just OHKO a discharge. Like, it's a very spammable Pokemon, and obviously like his inability to kind of harm, you know, well, not really electric types. It's more like you have Muddy Water to punish ground types like Donphan and Golurk, but you know, there's a lot of things that can actually just stop you in your tracks. Like Clodsire again is another annoying Pokemon for you. You can't Toxic it. Muddy Water is doing like no damage realistically. Could drop the accuracy though, so you dodge Earthquake, but at the same time Clodsire just Toxics you back or Earthquakes you back and just beats you in a 1v1 pretty much all of the time. But other than that, Bellibolt's niche, when you realize that he can actually check quite a few threatening physical attackers, is a decent pick in the current meta game for sure. It can just be somewhat annoying with paralysis, recovery, and even just spamming toxic. But yeah, overall, it's not a mon that's particularly proven itself too well, but when you realize what it can do in certain matchups, it's definitely a respectable Pokemon. Now, I'm not wasting any time on these two guys. We all know how Wugtrio is. We had Wugtrio in December, does nothing, and Unknown. We have a special question mark tier for Unknown because it is the question mark form that we rolled. And yeah, we're not wasting any time on these guys. Wugtrio might be the fastest Pokemon, but literally Crawdon is better than it, and pretty much every other anything that Wugtrio does is always outclassed. Like, do I really have to explain anything about Wugtrio, guys? But yeah, moving on to Shiftry. I'm putting Shiftry in A just because it's quite a versatile mon. I know a lot of people have been stuck to Sun, but recently I faced like a Defog, Will-O-Wisp, Shiftry with physical defense and itemless to act as a Crawdon check, because not a lot of Crawdons are running close combat unless they're choice banded, and you know, some people don't want to be running choice band Crawdon. So obviously you're one of the few Pokemon that's able to resist water and dark thanks to your grass dark typing, and you know, you just end up being quite annoying and having quite a bit of utility, to be honest. Spreading burns is always nice, especially to beat Crawdon. You have Defog to get rid of hazards. They're still a lot faster than you that threatens you, especially if you're not running Sun. You know, you have to worry about Cypher, Swanna, Infernape, Virizion. There's still quite a bit of Pokemon that threaten you out, just because your typing is almost as bad as Probopass. Like 7 weaknesses is something that you have to worry about, and you're not the bulkiest Pokemon by any means. But at the same time, like, Shiftry's main viability definitely comes from its Chlorophyll sets in Sun, because it's able to bypass its you know, speed issues, which, you know, is exploited by Infernape, Virizion, and co. But you know, also resisting Crawdon's you know, stab options are also pretty nice for it, especially in Sun, because you'll take Crabhammer quite well. You'll obviously get 2 killed by knockoff, let's be honest, but at the same time you can't be revenge killed. You're able to switch in once, threaten something out, have a growth set with Solar Blade, and that's a very tough Pokemon to switch into, in my opinion. But yeah, Shiftry is obviously, I think, is lower than Comfey because it's too situational. Like, Shiftry is probably a B+ Pokemon, or even B level if it didn't have Sun. But at the same time, like, Sun is pretty big in this tier, in my opinion. Might not be the most consistent playstyle, but it's something that players have to respect, and Shiftry is one of the main components of that. So yeah, that's why I'm putting it in A. Swanna. Swanna is a weird one for me. I'm putting it in B for now. I could move up to B+ depending on how I'm feeling by the end of this tier list. But at the same time, Swanna just hasn't really proven itself for me, to be honest. Like, I saw the damage that Swanna can do to max defense Clodsire with liquidation without like any boosting item, and it's hardly even a 2-hit KO. Like, you know how crazy that is. But to be fair, flying is quite underrated offensive typing in this metagame. You have things like, there isn't too many solid resistances to flying in this metagame. You have Belly Bolt, you have Probopass, which, you know, is weak to your other stab and doesn't see any usage, obviously. And, you know, there's a lot of grass types in the metagame. So flying is quite threatening in the metagame right now. But, like, yeah, I just haven't really seen anyone do anything with Swanna. It's not a mon that I particularly want to be using either. Just because there's just better options for me. If I want an offensive water type attacker, I'm using Crawdon or Kingdra or even Slowbro as a defensive pivot. One thing that Swanna does have access to is Defog, which is also pretty important, but even then I'd prefer to use Cypher because it's faster, and you know, Cypher actually hits quite hard with dual wing beat coming off of Technician. Like, it has a much higher attack stat than Swanna does, so it's obviously doing a lot more damage. Stab U-turn is also a lot more threatening than Flip turn in my opinion. And yeah, overall Swanna is just like middle of the bar. It's not bad, but it's not anything too crazy in my opinion. Like, the only set I would probably run is like Choice Scarf, just because it actually has a pretty solid speed tier, and you know, it's better off than running Choice Scarf Cypher, which has a ×4 stealth rock weakness. So yeah, take that into account. Houndoom, also another one I'm probably putting in B below Swanna here, just because of the fact that like Houndoom's just mid. Like, what can I say? Like, you see Houndoom and you're like, wow, it's a Houndoom. I'm not worried. Like, I'm not worried. It's funny, you know, because like there's just a lot that can handle Houndoom, and it doesn't really make it too threatening in my opinion. Like, you could run Houndoom on Sun, for example, which is where people are running Houndoom just so it could boost its damage. But at that point, Vileplume under Sun is more threatening than Houndoom, just because of, you know, it's Vileplume's dual stabs are a lot more threatening, has a lot more bulk, general bulk, and then it can set up growth and start, you know, actually hurting a lot of things. But yeah, Houndoom just gets stopped too easy in my opinion. Like, you have Goodra, even Type Null, Clodsire especially, Unaware will just cuck nasty plot sets pretty efficiently, and you can't really do anything about that. You know, at least you're not weak to U-turn, but at the same time, you're so weak to priorities, insane. So like, you have a Houndoom in there, you're just like, well, Infernape's gonna force this thing out, Crawdon's gonna force this thing out, even though you're slower, even though you're faster than a Crawdon. You know, and I'm just like, yeah, Houndoom hasn't impressed me at all in this metagame, just because it's too frail, and there's just more consistent offensive threats in the metagame at the moment, which doesn't warrant Houndoom getting any sort of usage whatsoever. But yeah, that's why it's in B. I'm not putting it in C because it's still Houndoom at the end of the day. Like, it's a respectable attacker. There's just better attackers in the metagame, so what can I say? At least I can give it the fact that, you know, like, the tier actually has quite a few dark types, 4 dark types overall, and it's probably the worst. It's not the worst out of all of them. Or is it? No, it actually is. I was gonna say it's better than Absol, but Absol is actually kind of better than Houndoom. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But yeah, moving on to Oricorio, we're getting all the midi mons out of the way, which is quite a shame because I actually want to talk about, you know, some of the actual better Pokemon in this metagame. But I'm so close to putting Oricorio Pom Pom in C, is actually insane. This mon actually achieves nothing in the current metagame. Like, it can be threatening, but when some of the top mons just like really harm it a lot, like, it's hard to justify. Like, some people are like, oh, Taunt Air Slash you know, has some potential, you know, can be annoying, and then every time I'm just using a Clodsire. Maybe it's because I use Clodsire too much, but when you're using some of the top meta threats and then you absolutely just don't do anything to Clodsire, to be fair, some people might not be running Poison Jab. I don't recommend it, obviously, because Taunt Air Slash would 1v1 you know, Clodsire if you lack that move. But at the same time, I use Clodsire quite a bit. I use Type Null quite a lot. Things like Crawdon as well with the priority, and Infernape, and just some other Pokemon that are able to be bulky and boost their, you know, special defense with like Calm Mind, like the Psychic types. And I'm just like, Oricorio never really achieves anything. Like, even if I wanted to go Quiver Dance sets, like, it's just not threatening, because it's so easy to just stop with any of the special walls that are being used in the current metagame. Now, it's a shame though, because its defensive typing is quite good. Like, you're one of the only few Pokemon that are able to resist Cypher's dual stab, which is quite important. And like, there's limited flying resist, but at the same time, Belly Bolt just seems to be more consistent at that. Is generally more bulkier despite its lower speed tier. You know, has slack off over Roost, and Roost can be outplayed. Like, I was outplaying Oricorios, they kept roosting, and on my Clodsire, and I was just like, cool, I'm just gonna EQ on the Roost turns, and then, you know, you lose your flying typing compared to Belly Bolt, which wouldn't really care, but it still is a Pokemon losing to Clodsire regardless. But overall, yeah, this one hasn't done anything. If you guys really think Oricorio is all that, just show me some replays. Realistically, I don't think there's any replays of this guy ever doing anything. But, you know, yeah, that's all I have to say on it. But yeah, onto Corsola here. And it's a shame that I have to put this one in C tier. I'm putting it above Probopass because, you know, I'm a Probopass hater. If you guys didn't know, it's my least favorite Pokemon of all time. So, you know, no bias there, but it generally is not a good mon anyway. But, you know, we're putting it in C tier Corsola here because it suffers quite a bit. It really does. Now, obviously, I could, you know, say that it's a ghost type and it's threatened by dark type, but the psychic types are also threatened by dark types, yet they're more consistent, they have more longevity, they're more threatening on the builder. But what does Corsola lack, which is the issue with these against like the other psychic types? Because it also has a good matchup into the psychic types. Like Ghost is quite, you know, overwhelming in the meta game at the moment. Like you have things like Golurk threatening a lot of Pokemon because we have like 4 psychic types or even 5. But yeah, Corsola's issue is obviously he's very low speed and is very low bulk. Like it might have a respectable special defense stat, but that HP stat is not really helping, and then it has an abysmal defense stat. The fact that it's slower than even things like Crawdon does not help it in its case either, because any physical attacker is going to take it out just because of the fact that it has no bulk. And the fact that his abilities also don't really help it. Like, you could obviously go with Perish Body. I almost forgot the name of that ability. I mean, it's the only one that has it. But Perish Body, like, you could obviously activate Perish Song and play around that, but it's so easy to play around that because on the turn before Perish Song activates, you can literally just swap out. Like, it's a mon that's abilities are too easily exploited, and it has no physical bulk. And to be fair, Trick Room is a valid play style in this metagame, in my opinion. Like, it's very valid. Like, I literally had the Trick Room team that went undefeated for like 5 games, but at the same time, like, there's just more consistent Trick Roomers as well. Like, you have Reuniclus, which shares the same base speed, but can actually run Life Orb, Magic Guard, has a lot more coverage than Corsola. And, like, outside of Trick Room, Reuniclus actually has things going for it. It can run Colbur Berry to good effect with physical defense investment, handle Crawdon, Oko Focus Blast, or Signal Beam. Corsola doesn't really have that, so, you know, is in C tier, and it's a shame because I actually like the mon, has the highest special attack stat in the metagame at the moment, but it's just too hard to use consistently at all for any of your teams. So yeah, that's why it's in C tier. Slowbro, putting in A+, this one's annoying. Teleport is just probably one of the best pivoting moves in the game, and you know, Slowbro is just very annoying to deal with. It's one of the best Infernape answers. It's quite bulky enough to not even care about something like Cypher's U-turn, for example. You're always gonna be taking decent damage from that. You can even tank Golurk's, you know, Poltergeist, whether you've wasted your Colbur Berry or you just go itemless Slowbro in the first place. Like, you check quite a bit in the metagame, teleport out, and can really enable strong wall breakers in the metagame to do their thing. So yeah, Slowbro is a very strong Pokemon in the current metagame. Also checks Clodsire to a certain extent. Future Psy, Scald, for example. Even you could go Psyshock to fit in. You are faster than Clodsire, so Psyshock will do quite a bit of damage, but Future Sight is a bit more consistent because you're forcing your Pokemon on your opponent's side to you know, you're gonna have to make sure you either bring in a dark type or something bulky enough to take Future Sight, because even without a special attack investment, Future Sight is the high base power move, which is Stab, coming off of Slowbro's base 100 special attack. So yeah, you have to definitely respect Slowbro. Now Goodra here, someone was telling me Goodra fell off, but I don't really know how you're saying Goodra fell off to a certain extent. Like, it's not the most splashable Pokemon ever, really, but if you want an offensive Pokemon that can take special attacks quite effectively, Goodra is your guy, basically. Like, you can pretty much threaten Shaymin, threaten the Fairy types. Like, the coverage on Goodra's side is actually so good. You can even go mix. Like, EQ would actually do quite a bit of damage to Clodsire. You have Fire Blast for the grass types, things like Shaymin, Sludge Wave for the Fairy types. Goodra is quite a threatening offensive threat, and you know, I think we should stop underrating Goodra to a certain extent. Like, fell off who? Like, you have quite solid abilities as well. Sap Sipper will be quite helpful against, you know, Shaymin's Leech Seed or Virizions, you know, Leaf Blade, for example. It might be frail on the physical side, not to the extent of Corsola, of course, but like, you know, can still get exploited on the physical side. But this is a Pokemon that not that many Pokemon in the meta game even want to switch into. even as knockoff to, you know, baiting something like Type Null, knockoff its Eviolite, and, you know, its effectiveness is significantly reduced. Type Null is still a bulky guy, don't get it twisted, but, like, losing its Eviolite means that something on the physical side, like close combat Infernape, will just nuke it. So, you know, you have to take that into account. I think it's better than Belly Ball. It's definitely more splashable than that Pokemon, so I'm putting it in B+. Torkoal. Torkoal's a tough one because, like, it really depends on how you view Sun in the metagame. If you think Sun is okay and is not all that, then I could probably put in B+. But if you rate Sun somewhat highly, you know, put in A or A+, for example. But Torkoal's definitely not A+ Pokemon. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But you know, we'll say Torkoal's in B+ just because you know, Sun is a, you know, viable playstyle in the metagame, and Torkoal pretty much hinges that playstyle's you know, viability. Even outside of setting Sun, you know, is a spinner, has rocks, is quite bulky on the physical side, can check a lot of things like pretty much any physical attacker mainly, other than like Golurk and Crawdon, of course. But, you know, checking Cypher, Infernape, Virizion, Shaman, even quite solid niches to have, and Flapple as well. You can spam Lava Plume or Yawn to deal with those guys quite well. But yeah, Torkoal's a decent pick, and might have to drop Shiftry to A then, because, you know, these two are quite together. I'll put Shiftry here, to be fair, because I feel like these guys' viabilities are so intertwined. Like, you're not using Torkoal without Shiftry and vice versa, so, you know, you have to take that into account. Shaman, this is going in A+. Shaman is quite an annoying threat in the metagame. So I was discussing this with someone, and like many other people as well, but like Crawdon's effect on the builder and the metagame, and someone was saying Crawdon doesn't really have impact like that. They were basically saying Crawdon wasn't that guy. And I was like, so why does Itemless Shaman exist? Why is that the main set that people are running? Fizz Def, Itemless Shaman. If Crawdon wasn't that guy, you wouldn't be running Itemless Shaman. You would actually be able to go leftovers on Shaman. But no, it's because people are afraid that banded Crawdon will just 2-hit KO Shaman, even whether you're using knockoff or crunch to bypass the fact that people are running itemless Pokemon. But yeah, nah, like let's not lie to ourselves. Shaman is good because it's one of the best Crawdon answers. Like, let's be honest now. Like, I low-key felt like it was disingenuous for a second. Like, no disrespect to anyone, but I low-key felt like this was just so disingenuous as an argument to say that Crawdon had no metagame impact, but itemless Shaman is literally the main set. But, you know, regardless, speaking about Shaman in general, quite a bulky mon, very annoying to take out, especially if you're using Crawdon teams and you're relying on Crawdon as your main breaker, because of the fact that you resist water, and obviously knockoff is doing less damage if you're itemless. So you're able to take the attacks from Crawdon, obviously outspeed it, and then, like, obviously Oko with Seed Flare, threaten something, the switching with Leech Seed. You also have Baton Pass, so you can always keep up momentum for your teammates. But yeah, Shaman's quite a splashable Pokemon, and the more I play with the metagame, the more I'm just like, well, Shaman is just very annoying to deal with. So, you know, it forms quite an effective core with Slowbro and all Clodsire, to be honest, because Shaman covers the physically defensive side and checks Crawdon, which Clodsire and Slowbro do not like whatsoever. But yeah, Infernape as well, this is another Pokemon that's going in A+. I feel like some people are underrating Infernape at the current moment in time, just because of the fact that I don't even know why people are underrating Infernape. Maybe I'm just waffling here, but yeah, Infernape is one of the best attackers in the format. Outside of Wugtrio, because that's not a real Pokemon, Infernape is tied the second fastest Pokemon alongside Virizion, and it is the much more threatening Pokemon out of the two. They're both mixed attackers with the same exact speed tier, but Infernape's typing is a lot more splashable than Virizion's typing. Grass fighting is so easy to wall as dual stab, whereas fire fighting literally only has Dash Bun as an answer, because Dash Bun has a well-baked body as an ability, and obviously resist close combat. And also Slowbro. I completely forgot about Slowbro, the one that's right next to Infernape. But regardless, you know, Infernape has ways of beating its checks. It has U-turn to get out of Slowbro and bring in something that Slowbro doesn't like to see, which is pretty much every special attacker. It also has Gunk Shot to really hit Dash Bun really hard. And like, at some point, I feel like I'm dropping Mach Punch on Infernape just to hit to fit Gunk Shot, because of the fact that, like, let's say you had Choice Band, for example, you have Flare Blitz, Close Combat, U-turn, and Gunk Shot. Because Gunk Shot will do a lot of damage to Dash Bun, and yeah, you definitely want to have a way of hitting that Pokemon for super effective damage. But yeah, Infernape is very strong. you'll probably think it's not that crazy because, you know, there's how many psychics in the tier, but the psychics don't really like its fire type damage, especially if you're facing a Bandit Infernape in Sun clicking Flare Blitz. There's not too many switch-ins to that guy, but yeah, you have to respect Infernape. Now Mesprit is also good in A+. This is a funny ass Pokemon, I'm not gonna lie. At first, I knew Mesprit's capabilities. Within the first few days of the meta game, I was using Mesprit as a Stealth Rocker, defensive Stealth Rocker with U-turn Psychic, like Healing Wish, Stealth Rock, similar to what it used to run in Gen 7 PU before, you know, NU took them on at the time. Really sad days back then. But, you know, Mesprit, I was leaning more into its defensive attributes. It has Levitate, could threaten Clodsire, could threaten a lot of physical, it could threaten the fighting types like Virizion and Infernape quite effectively, so that's why I was using them. And then someone told me about the sub Calm Mind Psychic Noise Draining Kiss set, and yeah, that set is hilarious. it's really funny to use. You know, you start with sub on a lot of these defensive threats that the metagame has slowed down significantly, so you're seeing a lot of bulky offenses slash balances, and Mesprit just takes advantage of those guys quite effectively. You sub on Clodsire, you sub on Slowbro, you just start setting up, and then eventually you just start 6-0ing things. You have Draining Kiss to hit the Dark type, Psychic Noise to stop recovery from things like type Null, or, you know, Shaman, for example, and it's just a very tough Pokemon to stop once it gets going. And it's won me quite a few games. Like, it can actually 6-0 teams if you're not prepared for it. So yeah, it's definitely a mon that deserves to be an A+. I'll put it above Shaman, just because offensively, like I would respect offensive mons more than defensive Pokemon in a metagame like 35 Pokes, for example. But yeah, Alcremie on the other hand, worst of the fairy types, unfortunately. We will be discussing Dashbun soon anyway, but yeah, Alcremie just doesn't really achieve much in the current metagame. I don't even know if, I think this and Probopass are relative to one another, I'm not gonna lie. It's like discussing mid versus mid, like who actually cares. But yeah, Alcremie lacks Comphase. Like, they have quite similar move pools. Like, I'm pretty sure this gets Heal Bell or maybe Aromatherapy. Maybe I'm tripping, I don't know. But you know, it is just hard to justify over the other two, because at least Dashbun has a fire immunity, is quite faster. Like, you can EV Dashbun to outspeed Golurk and you know, Crawdon, and actually try and revenge kill them, particularly towards Crawdon. But Alcremie doesn't really have that speed to it. Can't really set up as effectively because, you know, Comfey just does that better thanks to Triage, you know, Draining Kiss, so it doesn't actually have to invest anything in speed realistically. And then yeah, it just struggles to find its place in the metagame, which is a shame, to be honest. Someone was suggesting Choice Specs, which I might actually somewhat consider, but this one doesn't even have Moonblast, which is quite sad. But if you actually look at Alcremie's stats, it does have 121 special attack, has access to moves like Psyshock and Mystical Fire, so it could actually be quite a threatening Choice Specs mon. But again, there's just more consistent special attack because you have psychic types. Like, that's what I have to really say, really. But yeah, moving on to Golurk. Excuse me. Let's see. I'll put Golurk in A. I don't think Golurk's in A+, but it's pretty close to that, in my opinion. And my mind could definitely change on Golurk. This is a Pokemon that has to be respected as well. Like Crawdon, though it doesn't hit nearly as hard as Crawdon, this is a Pokemon that does a lot of damage. It has quite strong dual stabs with Ghost and Ground, has solid coverage in Dynamic Punch and the Elemental Punches, and yeah, it's pretty hard to switch into, I'll be honest. Like, look at the current Pokemon that we have and see things that are able to switch into Golurk. Not too many mons want to be switching into Golurk. Like, let's be honest now. Even Dashbun gets 3-hit killed by Poltergeist or EQ. Dynamic Punch deals with type Null. Even taking Earthquake type Null can take that quite comfortably, but Dynamic Punch is a lot more shaky. And obviously you're threatening the psychic types that are quite common in the metagame, like Slowbro, you're threatening Clodsire with Ground Stab. And yeah, realistically, the only good switch into Golurk is like Itemless Shaman. So, you know, take that into account as you will. But some people are running Iron Fist, Ice Punch, you know, Choice Band or Life Orb to hit Shaman a lot harder. But this is still a mon that's not getting 2-hit killed unless the Golurk is Choice Banded Iron Fist anyway. So, you know, take that into account as well. But yeah, Golurk is quite a threatening attacker, definitely at the top of A, depending on what else I'm putting in A. But, you know, it's definitely up there. Dashbun as well, I'm putting in A as well. I feel like metagame trends, you know, this mon doesn't really do anything to Clodsire unless you're running offensive, but who the hell is running offensive? Dashbun. Infernape is running Gunk Shot now. Always could just U-turn out on you anyway. Vileplume is a threatening Pokemon. And like, it's just his low HP stat that really lets it down. Because fair enough, you can resist Dark to deal with Crawdon, but you're not taking Crab Hammer well just because of your HP stat. Like, if you had a much higher HP stat, yeah, I would say this thing would be a decent Crawdon check. But Crawdon has ways of getting around its checks, which is quite a shame. But yeah, other than that, Dash Blunt offers Wish and Yawn. It has a lot of good utility options. It's a shame that you cannot run Well-Baked Body plus Baton Pass, because that would be passing stats. But, you know, before that was, you know, patched, that was quite effective, you know, pivot Pokemon. But obviously you could go Aroma Veiled, Baton Pass. Again, that is not worth it. Just use Comfey at that point. You do want Well-Baked Body to keep that fire immunity. But overall, Dash Blunt is a consistent defensive piece in the current metagame. And, you know, it's not as splashable as the things in A+, but it's still a mon that deserves some respect due to its high physical bulk. Now, moving on to Vileplume, this is the A mon. I do think it's above the other Sun sort of core, you know, archetype Pokemon like Torkoal and Shiftry, because of the fact that it actually can be a defensive Pokemon outside of Sun. Like, you can threaten Shaman quite effectively, you can threaten Slowbro quite effectively. Be careful of non-future sight psychic based attacks. You have Sleep Powder as well. Like, Vileplume is quite a versatile Pokemon that can run offensive and defensive sets. The defensive sets they're okay, because like, if you deep it, like, you're gonna wall Virizion quite effectively, but at the same time, you're weak to Flying and Psychic, which Shaman doesn't have to worry about a Psychic weakness, but Vileplume does, which does make it less consistent as a physically defensive Pokemon versus Shaman. And Shaman is also just bulkier thanks to its 100 across the board stat, which also gives it a much higher speed tier, which outspeeds Crawdon and Golurk without any speed investment whatsoever. So take that into account, why Shaman is probably going to be a more consistent defensive mon than Vileplume. But Vileplume is no slouch. You still have Strength Sap as well, so, and you're quite, I don't know who's less passive, because Vileplume does have 110 special attack and Sludge Bomb with 30% poison chance, which does threaten the fairy types. But you know, Shaman still has Seed Flare with a 40% chance of halving your special defense. So it's a 50-50, I feel, at that point. But yeah, Vileplume is no slouch on the offense or the defensive side of things, so that's why I'm putting in A. Cypher is also going to be in A as well. I'm going to put I'll put it above Dash Blunt. I feel like Cypher is quite underrated in my opinion, always is in some of these meta games. Like, I remember Cypher in October, that guy was him. Like, SD Defog or even Defog Cypher was him. It pretty much continues to do the same thing it did back in October, whether you're running SD dual wing beat bug bites close combat sets or Defog U-turn roost sets. You know, it's just quite a nice pivot. Threatens the psychic types quite effectively, threatens Shaman quite effectively. Like, there's a lot of top meta threats that Cypher is able to threaten out quite effectively, and the only things that really like stop Cypher in its tracks in terms of being checked offensively is like Infernape, because you get the, you know, you're faster than it, and you have Fire Stab, or Virizion, who you know, can run Stone Edge on some of its sets. Special Virizion isn't doing anything to Cypher, so don't worry about that. But if it does reveal the Stone Edge or shows that it's physical, it's most likely running Stone Edge, so you want to be careful. And yeah, like, even Cypher's not the bulkiest Pokemon, but obviously has access to Eviolite, you know, if you're dropping boots. And even outside of Eviolite, it's not like he's going to be revenge killed by like Crawdon's Aqua Jet unless you're like particularly too low, or he's running Choice Band, and you know, you transfer resist Mach Punch and stuff. So yeah, Cypher is quite an effective Pokemon in the meta game. Definitely one of my favorites, for sure. Donphan, I'll put Donphan in B+, just above Goodra in my opinion, because Spin is still taken into account. But Donphan's issue is somewhat like, it's hard for me to explain Donphan's issue, because like, you'd think Sturdy Boots is quite effective at, you know, being able to revenge kill a lot of Pokemon, thanks to the fact that it will live any hit. But at the same time, if Sturdy's broken, Donphan's defensive utility just kind of goes out the window. Now, obviously, it has 120 defense, so you can't really say that it's not a bulky Pokemon, but like, you have to realize that it has low special bulk as well, and a lot of Donphans are running like max HP, max attack, which does not really help its bulk too much either. Like, and is also just threatened out by quite a lot of the top Pokemon as well. Slowbro, Shaman, Vileplume, even something like Shiftry, and like some other, you know, attackers as well that can take advantage of it, like Virizion. But at the same time, it's a spinner. You can roll compress with Stealth Rocks plus Rapid Spin, has knockoff, has Ice Shard to, you know, revenge kill things like Flapple and things. And maybe it's because I haven't really had too much luck using Donphan. Like, every time I use Donphan, I'm just like, I wish I was using something else realistically. But at the same time, like, if you're considering removal options that like aren't defog necessarily for like hazard stack, Donphan is probably going to be your main way of removing hazard. So that's the niche that is established itself with. So take that into account. Toedscruel, I'm sorry, I don't see the hype. I don't get how this is like top 20 in usage. I really don't see it. This mon is not good. I think we need to stop deluding ourselves that Toedscruel is actually a good Pokemon. If I want a rapid spinner, I will just use the aforementioned Donphan. Like, fair enough, Toedscruel is faster, has the grass typing to deal with. Like, its typing actually deals with Clodsire and Slowbro quite effectively, but at the same time, this thing is not a physical attacker, so it's a special attacker, attacking on Clodsire's higher defensive stat. You will just probably get toxic or P-jabbed. Like, realistically, like, it is Tentacruel bulk, so your defense stat isn't actually that high, and your ground type that doesn't resist poison. So that means Poison Jab is actually going to chip you for quite a bit. You don't get Synthesis either. You don't get Strength Sap. The most you get is Giga Drain as longevity. This thing doesn't even get Leech Seed. You know how crazy that is? And like, people are hyping this one up. I don't get it. I'm sorry, I don't get it. This one's not good. Like, there's just too much that threatens it out. Like, you're weak to Bug, you're weak to Fire, you're neutral to Poison. You know, something like Mesprit can set up on you. Even something like Type Null is going to do significant damage to you just because you're weak to U-turn. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't really see how this one does anything in this metagame. I haven't seen it do anything, and I really question how it's top 20 in usage. I'm really surprised by that. But moving on to Soul Spark. Where do I respect Soul Spark? Because I know Serene Grace Headbutt is a funny move. And I low-key just want to use it for myself. I'm putting in B+, why not? Like, I don't respect Soul Spark, but I think this is just a pity ranking for me, because I do think Serene Grace Headbutt is probably one of the funniest things to use, and there's not really that much helmet usage. You could realistically cheese something, but obviously being locked into Choice Scarf Headbutt means that the two ghost types could come in, but if you don't see a Golurk, then good, you're spamming Headbutt. If you do see a Golurk, you could probably predict with Petal Blizzard and Oko it potentially. But yeah, that's all I have to say about Soul Spark. Nothing too crazy. Reuniclus, some people think this guy's mid. I don't think he is. I think he's probably near the bottom of A, just because Mesprit is a more consistent Psychic type to use if you want to set up Psychic and also a defensive Psychic type. Reuniclus might have Recover, and Mesprit doesn't really have that, but it still has something like Healing Wish, it still has Stealth Rocks, it still has U-turn. Like, if the expanded teleports, you know, move the Pokemon that get teleport, and Reuniclus was one of those Pokemon, I would rate Reuniclus a lot higher, because Regenerator teleport could be hilarious to use. Like, it would be quite a funny set. But yeah, Reuniclus is just kind of stuck to being like a Cobra Berry defensive Psychic Wing Con, which I just think Mesprit pulls off a lot better. They both get Psynoise, and obviously you have Acid Armor, Calm Mind, Stored Power Reuniclus sets, but if you want to go double dance for Reuniclus, you have to realize that you're going to be walled by the dark types, because you can't really fit in like Signal Beam or Focus Blast without having to drop Recover, for example. So yeah, that's why Mesprit's a lot more consistent at the defensive Wing Con option. But yeah, Reuniclus is still a respectable Pokemon, especially under Trick Room, Life Orb, Magic Guard. Can't really go wrong with that. You'll underspeed pretty much everything other than Clodsire and Torkoal, and then at that point you're the fastest one on the field, throwing off Life Orb, Psychics, and pretty much Oko and everything that doesn't resist you. So yeah, what can I say? Spiritomb, another disappointing Pokemon, really doesn't really achieve much in the current metagame. It is the third ghost type in the metagame. I'm putting it above Cursola. At least this thing could actually be like a decent physical like priority mon. Like, you have Shadow Sneak, Sucker Punch, you have Will-O-Wisp with Infiltrate. Like, it's a decent fighting check. Like, Spiritomb would be able to somewhat switch into Infernape and Virizion quite comfortably. Has Pain Split, but I don't know. It has Infiltrator too. Like, you have to respect that. Infiltrator is going to get past that sub Mesprit, be a very pesky Pokemon to deal with, but it still is a Pokemon that has to rely on Poltergeist like Golurk does for, you know, Ghost Stab on the physical side, other than Shadow Sneak. And you know, if you're facing itemless Pokemon, then yeah, a lot of your damage output is just gone. But yeah, I could see Spiritomb having the most potential out of the C plus, the C rank guys for sure, or even Alcremie. But other than that, yeah, Spiritomb's not anything too crazy. Now we finally get to Type Null. Type Null, the GOAT. We all know how Type Null is. Yeah, Type Null is it's tough for me to put Type Null so low in A+, but Type Null is just a beast. One of the tankiest special defense mons in the tier. Is also a pretty annoying win con. Like, if you see an SD Type Null and you're running like a balanced team, I'm praying for you, because eventually that Type Null is gonna get a win. You know, Clodsire is probably going to be prevalent on a team style like that, so Unaware is something you have to take into account. But if there's no Clodsire, there's no Ghost Type Null is really going to be going in. It just stops a lot of threatening special attackers as well. Is why Oricuru isn't anything too crazy. Is why you know, Kingdra isn't anything too crazy either, because Kingdra, obviously crit draw sets is something that is somewhat inconsistent, but is something that you have to take into account. And if you do face it, the only one that's going to be comfortably switching into a crit Kingdra is Type Null, thanks to its ability Battle Armor. So you're not going to be taking any damage from Kingdra. So being the best Kingdra counter, being a solid Jinx answer, even tanking hits from fighting types like Infernape and Virizion from full HP is just amazing to see from Type Null. And I love the fact that we finally got Type Null on 35, because I've been waiting for one like this. Like, I've been waiting for Type Null just because it's so bulky. But yeah, Virizion, B+, like I was telling some people, maybe I'm hating too much if I put Virizion in B+, and I do believe I would probably be hating too much if I put Virizion in B+, so I'll put it in A. You know, it's quite versatile, but at the same time, like, I'll just rather use Infernape for like offensive sets, or like even a mixed attack. I'll just rather use Infernape, because like I said when I was discussing Infernape, the firefighting stab is more threatening than grass fighting, but Virizion can lean more into its defensive sets, because it is one of the few Pokemon that are able to resist Crawdon's dual stabs. But at that point, Shaymin and Vileplume somewhat outclass you, because they're just bulkier. Even like Shaymin can run itemless, you know, can actually threaten things with Leech Seed. Virizion doesn't really get access to that, and most is clicking Toxic, and you know, that's just going to get stopped by Clodsire hard. At least Shaymin has Earth Power and Leech Seed to annoy Clodsire. Vileplume, a bit harder to justify, but Clodsire is neutral to Giga Drain, and it's kind of a stalemate, because Clodsire won't be able to do any damage, while Vileplume can do a bit more damage to it with Giga Drain. But yeah, that's all I have to really say. Absol, I'll give Absol some respect. I'll put it above Houndoom, because I've seen Absol do a lot more. It's annoying when this mon gets a crit, especially when people aren't running Scope Lens, because you know, Super Luck boosts your crit by one stage. If you go Scope Lens, you get a 50-50 crit chance on all of your attacks, guaranteed on Night Slash. But Night Slash is so weak, you might as well just go knockoff and pray you crit every knockoff you click. Yeah, it's kind of an alternative to Crawdon, which is a bit worse. But at the same time, like, I could see Absol actually doing things definitely more than anything in C rank. So that's why Absol's going in B. Flapple, I have to put some more respect on Flapple's name. For now, I'm going to put at the top of B+, because some people genuinely think this mon is broken. Or like, some people are starting to see that this one actually can be a bit crazy. So I'm going to put it in B+. For now, I need to use it myself to really gauge how crazy this could be. But apparently, like, there's not that many Pokemon that can handle a Flapple once it starts setting up, because it hits it hits very hard thanks to Hustle boosting its attack and then getting boost via Dragon Dance. So yeah, when I get to use Flapple, maybe my tier list will change. For now, moving on to Crawdon, definitely I think Crawdon's the best Pokemon in the meta game. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with that, but respect the fact that Crawdon is one of the strongest Pokemon in the meta game. You forced people to go itemless Shaymin. Like, that's already like metagame impact there. It's just because Crawdon does a whole lot of damage, especially with choice band sets. It's very hard to, like, when you're trying to run defensive Pokemon, you're just like, well, I need a Crawdon onto, or else it's gonna OHKO everything on my team. So yeah, adaptability. This is a mon that is somewhat getting to the levels of like broken for 35 Pokemon format, where it's just too hard to try and find reliable switches to it. But we've seen that Itemless Shaman is a decent pick. You can run Cobra Berry on Psychic types to, you know, take advantage of Crawdon spam and knockoff, especially on something like Slowbro, because like Crawdon takes some chip from Life Orb, because Life Orb is also a common item. Body Press will OHKO it, or leave it so low that one hit, one more attack from Crawdon will just kill it due to Life Orb recoil. Mesprit also has, you know, physical, special, super effective attacks like Dazzling Gleam or Draining Kiss to OHKO Crawdon. Comfort also pressures it offensively. So Crawdon isn't like completely unbeatable, because there are ways to exploit its frailty. But at the same time, on the other side of the spectrum, Crawdon is going to be doing a lot of damage to those Pokemon if they try and switch into it carelessly. But yeah, Kecleon, yeah, there's not much to say about Kecleon. I don't think this guy does anything really. There's not really much reason to use it. Say if Protein didn't get nerfed going into Generation 9, I think Kecleon would be quite an effective Pokemon in these formats. But however, being stuck to one typing after clicking an attack, because like what Kecleon used to do in the lower tiers was be very annoying. You'd switch your typing with Stealth Rock, click Drain Punch, get stabbed, have recovery, click Shadow Sneak to be a very annoying Revenge Killer, become a Ghost type. Now it doesn't really have access to any of those things anymore, which is quite a shame. But yeah, not really much reason to use Kecleon really. It's just not an effective Pokemon in the metagame right now. Jinx is going in B+. I'll put it at the top of B+ for now, because Jinx is able to threaten some of the tier's most sturdiest defensive cores. Whether you're using Clodsire a lot, you have type advantage on that. Shaman, you have type advantage on that. Vileplume, you know, some of the physical defensive Pokemon don't have the strongest special defense stats. You look at Dashbun, which has quite a low HP stat and average special defense stat. So Jinx can actually, you know, threaten a lot of these physically defensive walls. Even Type No doesn't really want to be switching into a +2 Focus Blast, for example. And then, like, obviously Jinx can sleep stuff with Lovely Kiss. It's pretty much the fastest sleep mon if you exclude Vileplume in, you know, Chlorophyll Sun Boost. And yeah, last Pokemon, Kingdra. I'm also going to put Kingdra in B+. I'll put it below Flapple, because I think these two guys, like, they have their consistency issues, but if you put like two of them on like screens, for example, they're pretty much going to be some of the most unbeatable Pokemon in the metagame. You just take quite a bit of support to take into account. But yeah, overall, this is the tier list that I would personally have. There's no S tiers. I feel like I would put Crawdon in S, but is again not too splashable. You could build teams without having Crawdon on your team. And yeah, this is the tier list I'm having so far, day 10 into the metagame, and we'll see if it's different or not by the end. I could make a end of month tier list. Probably won't be nearly as long as this video, because all I have to do is really just swap mons around and explain my reasonings for that. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know down below what you think of my tier list for 35 pokes, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.